Alrighty. Well, on the other phone today, because my normal potato cam went flat. I just realised and I tried to turn it on then. Anyway, been trying for a few weeks with this Solomon Islands newspaper. Fucking hell. Oh man. It took me 3 weeks to get through to a salesman to talk about putting an ad in. 3 weeks. Here we are, week number 4. And or will be in a couple of days anyway. And that might already be. I think it is. Anyway, 4 weeks later, and getting no replies, getting no nothing, and I'm pretty certain he's going to put it through, but they either cut off the blasted email address on the bottom, or they had some grumble and didn't print it, or it couldn't fit on. We'll put it on another day. He sort of said, when do you want to put in? And I said, as soon as possible. And because it mightn't have had a date on the damn paperwork, then it just sort of went into the bloody twilight zone or something, Long and short of it is that it's a load of BS. And you think, how can such a poor country be so incompetent? Well, there's a trend over there that I've noticed in hotel reviews. Hotels like the Gizo Hotel that have been there for 40 years, anybody working in those joints, it's sort of almost like, well, we've been around for 40 years, you can Google us and find us without a problem, and, so we're secure in our job, and then they just sort of get lazy. And then, you look at some of the reviews and, oh shit, it's just a lot of broken stuff that's never fixed. They had a solar hot water system and they said, well, that's got to be good enough, it's bright enough here every day. Well, the bloody thing broke, so they just replaced it with solid pipes. So now your hot water is just literally a fucking steel pipe sitting on a roof in one direction. Not a big blooming solar setup. Where the inlet was to the solar water heater and the outlet was, they just joined the two with the pipe. And that's on the roof, but, of course, there's no heat in it, A lot of things, squeaking fans and fridges that keep cutting the power out, and all these sort of dumb things that... But the staff are hopeless because they're secure in the job because it's such a well-known place. Yet you go 200 yards down the road, there is another one that you can't Google, that you only find out about by word of mouth, at least if you're a foreigner. And, it's half the price, brilliant staff, everything works, everything's good. Why? Because you can't Google them. They've only been going for a few years. 2-3 years, and so everybody's like working really hard because they don't know where their next business is coming from because they're not well known, and so they are working hard to keep their job good, to keep their job. They want to please the customer because their jobs aren't 100% secure because they're not known outside of the local area really. Fortunately, somebody did mention them in a review on the Gizo Hotel, and that's how I found out about them. But never mind that, there's another place that, a lot of these places, they've been logged, so they go in there and they log the shit out of things, and a lot of it is actually Malaysians and Aussies that do a lot of the logging. Quite a few Aussies involved in the logging there, but there's also, Malaysians in other areas of Asia who are involved in all that. Now, the long and short of it is that there's one island that hasn't been logged. It's well known that it hasn't ever been logged. It's all virgin rainforest. Same thing, prices through the roof, useless staff. And I think it's a bit of a trend of this country that if you feel your job's secure, you slack off. And, you're almost one of the unsackables, and you know, there's probably businesses like that here. In fact, I can think of a number of businesses like that here. But it's one of these things that, you know, you got the country's biggest newspaper, and it's just doesn't give a fuck, you know. I really get the feeling also too, the internet costs $100 a month. That's your cheapest one, and now I think that's about the only plan. But it's so bloody unreliable that nobody bothers with emails really. So you know, it's not really it's more one of these ones where you got to phone things in all the time, and then if you're going to have an email address that people are going to, you know, contact you with, well, nobody's using email. Well, it's a bit, you know, you can't really expect a great deal of people to necessarily respond if not a lot of them have email addresses anyway, but amongst your sort of university students, they all have that sort of stuff. And that's all I would have needed as a contact over there. But then you couldn't expect for all the locals to contact you. The phone systems are great, you know, but the internet systems are shit. But even then, like this newspaper, they're not even checking emails that are being sent to them and stuff. And it's just bullshit, you know. So anyway, I actually sent them an email and said, if this shit's not printed, I'm not fucking paying for it, you know. And all they've got is just my name and my email address. There's no phone number, there's no address. How the hell are they going to chase me for debt when I'm in another country? Man. So I just about guarantee that by the lack of any responses, aside from the girl who worked there who tried to jump the gun on it all, well, it must be one of the trainees or something, asked to, you know, for the job as contact. I don't think it's really going to happen. And but yeah, but there's more to it than that. I've been looking into all this stuff involving brides and all that, and holy fucking cow! Oh man, you know, I've seen people, I've known of one Fijian Indian come in here who, you know, wasn't healthy, but due to family they walked straight in here, you know. And I've seen another Indian who quite obviously had mental issues. There's even a German woman who was, you know, a bit backwards. All these people are migrated as immigrants, but if I have a wife, and I'm not talking about, you know, oh well, like the Indian Fijian woman, that was someone's mother. But if I have a wife, they've got all these blasted restrictions. It actually takes 3 years for them to get permanent residency. You've got to have been married for at least a year before they can even get temporary residency. These are all going on realistic costs. You can get one of those, like a fiancé visa, a K1 visa. Holy shit! $6,850, so basically $7,000 to apply. Now, if your application's refused, stiff shit, they keep the $7,000. The amount of paperwork you have to go through is phenomenal compared to one where you've been married for, you know, realistically, I think you got to be, you got to already be married and they've got to be onshore. Now, unless we do some real strange BS, you know, realistically, she can come over here for 3 months tourist visa, marry during that time, and then you got to wait basically another year before she gets another 3-month tourist visa granted to her, because you can only come in the country 3 months out of every 12 months or something like that on a tourist visa. They can make it 6 months of the 12 months, but it's only certain cases, and I don't know if anyone from the Solomon Islands would even be signed off on something like that. I know people in the United States or Canada or some, you know, Western country would be, but that itself, you know, takes a month to even be approved for a 6-month stay. But basically, you've got to have been married for a year and then come on shore, and you can use a tourist visa and then straight away you put in an application for a temporary partner visa, but that takes 6 to 8 weeks to process. So you've got to like fly here you've got to already been married, fly here one day and lodge the paperwork the next, more or less, to guarantee that you're going to be approved. And I don't think it's as simple a case as sort of, you know, marrying in the Solomon Islands and then, but this is the thing, do you really want to marry someone who you met 2 weeks ago? It's not realistic. It's fucking dangerous to do stuff like that. So realistically, she'd have to be here with me for a few months before I even was sure, you know, and well, being here with me for a few months, bang, that automatically another 12 months before they can get another tourist visa to come here. So you'd have to be separated for 9 months to that 12 months. Well, you know, as in her being overseas and you being stuck here. My cat gets a little bit funny when you leave it for 2 weeks. I don't really think I should be going over there for a couple of months. And I don't think I'll have my job if I come back after having left for 2 months. You know, you're stuck on all sides. The long and short of it is, this is all in an effort to get a wife who's going to be fairly loyal, a fairly decent woman, you know. God knows you won't find any white city girls in that situation, because all I got to do is just look at what I've seen around me. I can look amongst my own family members and see this sort of stuff. I don't need anybody telling me how it is when I've already seen it going on for years and years. You know, they even had a show, Farmer Wants a Wife. There was a fucking gold digger on there who was solely interested in, oh, well, you know, we're going to be together, but bingo, she went back to the city. Are you interested in a long-distance relationship? She said to him, this is all playing out on TV. Oh, yeah. He just said, yeah, just out of sheer, you know, hope of trying to hold it together. And then she turns around and goes, well, I'm not. So either you come to the city, you sell the farm and come to the city with me, or it's not going to happen. And he was there yelling, oh, bugger it, oh. He was just about going to tears and just about having a tantrum on TV. Because, you know, he was about 40-something, 42, 45. The girl in question was probably about 37 or something. And, you know, he'd inherited this place off his father. And here she was, and if you weren't fucking dumb as dog shit, you know, it was so obvious. She wanted him to sell the farm and move to the city with him so she could spend all the money, and when it all ran out, fucking divorce him and then move on to the next. But they're so fucking cunning, they will do it on a goddamn TV show in front of a national audience. And you sit there going, fucking hell. Like, I've heard of this shit happening before. I really have heard of that shit happening before. You know, it's not unknown. There's a guy who his own parents turned against him because he met this girl. Within 6 months they were married, and 2 years later the fucking parents didn't have a place to live in. In fact, they gave him the main house on the farm, the main fucking farmhouse, for him and his new wife, and they built themselves a little flat back down behind the sheds. They'd got like one of these granny flats they'd bought in or had built, and they'd moved into that. Within 2 years, the fucking joint was sold at auction, and his own parents turned against him for being stupid, but they blamed him, and in effect it sort of was his fault because it was a gold digger. But these cases are, you know, real cases. And loyalty is an extreme issue here, where we even have something as fucked up as spousal maintenance, and I'll make a separate video on that. I thought spousal maintenance only existed in fucking Hollywood. It exists here, and in England. In England it's even worse than us, where they've got a chance to take it to court for the second time if you get a better job. If somehow you get ahead and you get a better job, they can go for a second bite of the cherry, as they call it, or second bite of the apple, as I'd say. It's fucked up, you know, and this is the thing, you know. I want a loyal girl, and it's very hard to find that inside this culture. which is why the mail order brides was looking at being the only option. Now there's other options. There's one other option that I've come across. And, you know, you get some of these ideas that spiral into your head and you just sort of laugh them off as being full of shit. And then there comes a point where you sort of, your other option falls through. You thought you could marry a girl and bring her over here and be here together forever, pretty much, you know, rather easily because she's your wife. Oh, no, it's 3 years. There's other people, there's like fucking year and a half before you can, you know, they can be here permanently. 2 years before they can be here permanently. They're telling me now it's 3 years? Like, what the fuck? They extended the time out, because a couple of years ago it was only like a year and a half, and then it was like 2 years. Now it's 3 years that you're going to be before they can get permanent residency as your partner. By the way, if you're gay, you can bring them over as a partner. So technically you don't need to be married. You can also bring them over as a de facto partner. And in fact, if you're a student here, you can bring over your partner if you are a student. But if you're a born and bred Aussie citizen looking for a girl who you're willing to marry, no fucking easy way. You know, you still got to jump through a whole stack of hoops and shit, you know, that other people do. And, you know, this is one of these things where they don't make it any easier because you're an Australian citizen and you're Australian born and you've got married to a girl. It's no easier than anyone else. And that's a common misconception that you can marry someone and just bring them over here. The more I've dug into this shit, the more I've, you know, and it's everything, bang. To fly there, return, there's $1,500 down the drain, never mind any hotels, motels, whatever. Every temporary partner visa is $2,000. You know, if you want one of these other ones that's very complicated to fill out, the fiancé visa, or they call it prospective marriage visa, it's basically like a K1 visa, that's $7,000. Not including any migration lawyers you may have. You know, I'm sitting there clocking all this up, and I'm like, holy shit, that's going to be like 10 or 15 grand. Fucking hell, like, is it got to be this hard, you know? And you still end up with a girl who probably can't speak perfect English because all she's been brought up with is pidgin English. I'm not saying that's impossible, but, oh man, it's a lot of effort. You know, oh, you got to be willing to put in a lot of effort for a wife. Yeah, I know, but I just don't feel like throwing 15 grand in the fucking bin if I can find a girl inside this country. And this is the thing, you know, I have considered Aboriginal girls, nah. It's, there's too much crazy behaviour and there's too many that are naive. Now if I could find a smart one with a stable family, that'd be great, but the chances of finding a smart one with a stable family is still a bit meh. And they don't like really moving out of the area they're in, generally speaking. I mean, it's a viable enough idea, but holy smoke, like, I don't have the weekend to fly to the other side of the country every weekend. I'm not saying I couldn't, but it makes it just as hard as them being overseas without all the visa paperwork. You know, if I've got to fly a massive distance, and I'll probably just end up in some fucking desert town with, you know, no girls that are really less than 300 pounds anyway. But there's another option that I thought of as a joke, and now it's looking more and more realistic, and it's about as far-flung as the cardboard house. But just like the cardboard house had a waterproof outer skin, that a lot of people didn't realise, had a waterproof outer skin, and it would stay dry in the rain, or at least until 2 years later when the roof collapsed. You know, it had its own stove set up, it had its not correctly built sink that failed, but, you know, we had, you know, extraction fan for the stove, we had a bed, we had a fold-down table, we had lights, we had a fan to keep you cool while you laid in bed, and all this stuff was all built in. It all sounded like, this is crazy, it's a fucking cardboard box, but push come to shove, would you rather be standing out in the fucking rain or in the cardboard house? I know what I'd be. You know. I even managed to get fucking sacking insulation, the silver paper inside that bloody thing, and then recover more cardboard over the top of it so you couldn't see it. So technically it was insulated. It did have quite an ability to hold a bit of warmth, that building. It was very intriguing. No ability to keep the noise out though. The noise would pass straight through it, even though it was 40mm honeycomb cardboard. But as crazy as that was, but still could actually come together, there's another idea that's like the cardboard house of ideas. And it doesn't involve any illegal immigration or anything like that. It is that crackers that I don't really feel like talking about it, at least initially. Some of you inevitably you'll come to realise what it is. But it is an ability to get a very, very loyal young woman, inside this country, one who I can go and visit every weekend, and I don't know how to say this, but there's a higher surety of it all happening due to, the long and short of it is you end up more or less doing a lot of negotiation with the parents on the basis that it's not, well, in fact it's not too far off an arranged marriage, to be honest. But, I don't want to force anyone into anything, because nothing works when people are forced into situations they don't like. But having said that, there are, we've got a lot of cultures and different stuff in this country, and I can go down to the capital, and I've worked with Sudanese. I've even not gone to the capital. I've worked with Sudanese, Vietnamese, Chinese. You name it. We've now got Syrians coming over here in fairly large numbers. But there's another one that seems a little bit odd until you look into it. Apparently, it's to do with all the people that were pushed out by the FARC guerrilla movement and stuff out of Colombia into neighbouring countries, who ran over the border in the middle of the night just to avoid being fucking mortared in their bed. And some of these people come back to Colombia, and it's actually been a bit of a case where they're not 100% sure, and a lot of them have lost all their documents and stuff like that. So the long and short of it is that there's been some of these Colombians that have actually, we never used to have many South Americans over here, but I'm noticing on these dating sites that I've been looking on, we're getting girls from Chile, Argentina, Colombia, all starting to be part of the local group down here, part of the fucking capital down here, and it's not unknown to hear about Colombians being in the capital, and we're sort of getting more of a South American population. And there was talk that these people that have been displaced persons by these guerrilla activities in Colombia that are finally now starting to come to an end, that some of them would be brought over more or less as refugees, because they're sort of, everything's been lost and things have changed so much since they left 20 years ago that they're going back to nothing, and there's only like a lousy few thousand, 3,500, 5,000 total, some of who want to stay in Colombia, and a handful of who, I think the UN's given an option to be, refugees, because they're going back to nothing. They can't really even pinpoint where they used to live. Because of changing landscape over 20 years, and the jungle coming back or whatever, so I don't think there's any landmines involved in the situation, thank God. But there's more of those that might be coming over, and we've got a lot of different cultures down here, and you pick the right one, and you're fine. And I work in the capital anyway. So, for all intents and purposes, I could leave me work Friday night and go to the damn girlfriend / fiance's place. You know, it wouldn't be too unrealistic. And this is one of these things. You've just got to pick the right culture and become a part of it. And that may be the thing I'm going down in one of these cultures. You first think this is airy-fairy bullshit, but I've sort of realised that I've already know at least one person and potentially can meet the rest of them that's already involved in this. And I know this one person quite well, you know, and I think it's a means to an end here, and, you know, I think they wouldn't have a problem understanding where I'm coming from, because they know part of the story already, you know. So yeah, it might be a black girl, but I'll put it like this: is she won't be an English-based white girl. But all the same, you know, if this is, you know, and I'm willing to negotiate and I'm willing to pay a dowry and shit like that if push comes to shove. This is the thing: when you pay a dowry and the girl's already inside your own country, well, it's already a sealed deal because she's inside the country. It's not, well, you pay a dowry, but heaven forbid you got to jump through shitloads of paperwork, $14,000 worth of frickin' plane flights and visas and technical bloody visa applications and migration agent, blah, 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 blah. If she's inside this country, even if you pay a dowry, she's already here, you know? You know, and that's the big problem going right there. And you may say, well, that was your one draw card, was to bring a girl over, and you'd be fairly right. It is a great draw card to bring a girl over, but that doesn't mean that you've got all the cards in your hand, because you've still got to fork out thousands and go through shitloads of paperwork, you know, and wait years. And I come to the realisation recently that, you know, I'm going to be 37 later on, near the end of this year. And I'm going to be at least 37, if not 38, if I go chasing a foreign girl. Add on to that 3 years before they can come over here. And I'm 40 to 41 before we've even got a chance to start on babies. Now, I never wanted to be like my grandfather, who got married and 6 weeks later turned 42. And then started having kids, because that was really too old. And I'm looking down the barrel at what I'm looking down, and, you know, if you don't, even if I was to marry a girl by January next year, I would still be 41 before the first baby was born. What the fuck is this? I'm going to be an old man by the time they, you know, and it's a lot of bullshit. That's all things going well. That's some impossible target to manage, getting married by January next year, but it'll still be 41 before the first baby come along. Fucking hell. Honestly, like, get real, you know. This is crap, you know. And this is the thing, you know, you can't have kids to a girl overseas, be married to her, but do you really want to leave her in a country where you're seeing things in the newspaper that say the main hospital for the capital has run out of opiate-based painkillers, and we might also be running out of, you know, common anaesthetics and stuff like this. Thinking, fucking what? Do you want to leave a girl to have a baby in a country like that? This is not the outflung far out hospital. This is the main one in the nation's capital is running out of some supplies. Fuck that. I'm not risking. Who wants to risk a wife with that? You know, you want her to have the best medical care possible when you got a baby on the way, and it's bullshit. A lot of it's just bullshit. So I might be barking up a certain tree at a point, and some of you guys might be shocked, and some of you guys might be appalled. But at the end of the day, this is the one realistic option that isn't going to cost me truckloads of money, and you'll see it when you see it. and it has started as a crazy bit of a by-thought idea, but, you know, I just look at it all and I'm thinking, it's not that crazy. Couldn't be any more crazy than Cardboard House anyway. And at the end of the day, if I end up with a young lass and we've got kids in the next 2 years, well, I'll be happy with that. You know, and the thing is, as much as bringing a girl from overseas is a great draw card, I'll tell you what else is a great draw card too. And I've noticed this with some of these single mums who try and get friendly with my mum and strange things like that in an attempt to get to me, and these sort of things happen sometimes, is that having your own frickin' house is a great draw card. And in some cases, even having a house that you rent is a draw, but this is a house I own. I don't know, it's a cottage, it's fairly badly ran down, but, you know, this is one of these things, is I am, you know, in a stable situation with a house of my own. And if you have a girl who's come from, did you know in India they've now got a push on to say that this is a new campaign and this is women standing up for women and women's rights, and you know what it is? No toilet, no marriage. There's guys there trying to get married to girls and they don't have a fucking toilet in their house. You know, and you've got girls who come from fairly basic situations who might be going to a husband who's got a fairly basic but better situation. Is it all that bad? You know, it might be cable TV and air conditioning, but let's face it, if they've grown up with next to no water pressure, possibly not even a toilet and this and that, you know, is my place that bad after all? You know, admittedly I need a toilet system, needs such a fix-up that I'm actually just going to build a whole new one. And that's something that I'm going to do when spring comes. It's something that you don't want to be running an excavator in this sort of weather necessarily, but or a backhoe. But yeah, that's something that I've got to work out for this spring. And I'll see how the cookie crumbles, and we'll see how we go. But it isn't a path I would have assumed I'd be going down. In fact, only a few weeks ago I thought of it as ludicrous, but now I'm looking at it and I'm sort of thinking, well, why not? You know, when all your other options are added up, this is probably the best one of the lot. It may be crackers, but there's quite a chance it's not that crackers after all.